Hello and welcome to another episode of the Smaulgld Subscribers Sound Off series. And today I have the distinct honor of having with me a new guest, Patrick Daubert. Patrick, how you doing today?
Real good, Louis. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, great to have you. Now, Patrick has a very interesting story to tell. I think you'll be very interested. He is currently a sound money advocate and someone who favors gold, silver, and Bitcoin. But he's come to this realization through a very, I would say, unconventional way, because Mr. Daubert was not just a Bernie Sanders supporter a couple of years ago, but actually actively campaigned for him. So today we're going to learn about Patrick's journey and how he went from hating the 1% of this country to becoming someone who is now an advocate of sound money. Patrick, can you take it from there and give us your transformation from a left-wing Bernie Sanders supporter to someone who now appreciates the sound money, ending the Fed, Bitcoin, gold, silver, and all those types of things that were not in your vernacular just a couple of years ago?
Well, I was always a radical, and whenever I've had an idea in my life, I've just been obsessed by it. And an idea which possessed me was, and which still does to this day, was that we were destroying the planet. You just look around, and it's clear that humanity is having a negative impact overall on Earth in terms of whether it's, dropping bombs and doing explicit things against other humans and, destroying places and blowing stuff up, or if it's just our propensity to overconsume food and land and all the water we're using to feed the cows we eat, and everything we're doing is just sucking Mother Earth dry, more or less. And I thought, I'm not a scientist. I was in law school after studying creative writing, after, not really using a backpack in high school because I was playing hockey and more interested in other stuff. And the reading I did as a kid was mostly, fun books, Lord of the Rings, etc. So I realized there's something going wrong here, and it's been going on since way before I arrived. And there's a price to pay, and when it comes due, it's likely either to be our generation or one close behind us. The people who are in charge now aren't really that interested in stopping the hell. So I thought that we could pursue renewable energy, and we could. Bernie seemed to be less warmongering than the other candidates, and he talked. He said Iraq was a mistake, and I believe obviously Iraq was a mistake. I had voted for Obama both times. It was my first votes I ever cast, and I thought I was doing the right thing because you're pretty steeped in the dogma of the sort of Democrats are the party of the thinking people, right? And you have to step out of line a little bit because even you read the New York Times, and I always have read The Economist, and I felt like I was correct being. I was obviously a little far out of The Economist with liking Bernie Sanders, but I definitely felt that Bernie was the candidate who was right at the time, and so I campaigned pretty hard for him. I was out there not working for him at all. Like, I took it upon myself to go and meet people, convince them that Bernie's probably the right choice. Are you concerned about this? Then I think you're going to want to choose Bernie. I went out into Spanish-speaking neighborhoods in Boston and was handing out flyers in Spanish, telling them about Bernie and where to find a site which explained Bernie's better points in Spanish.
And so then, having done that, and obviously Bernie lost after Hillary stole the primaries from him, when did you start to say, maybe my involvement with Bernie Sanders was more emotionally based than perhaps economically or intellectually based? What changed your point of view?
Right. Well, it was sort of a cascading series of things. I don't know where it started. But I was obviously completely disenchanted with having anything to do with politics ever again, because the experience of feeling so much energy and vibrant enthusiasm being for our candidate, and just it being blatantly stolen, as we were later to learn what we suspected was actually happening. They were colluding to take all the support, and there may have been outright vote rigging. If you look at exit polls, there were clear discrepancies on the Democratic side that were not present in certain districts on the Republican side, which all had the common theme of it being completely electronic voting machines. So it was a harrowing experience. You're right, it was very emotional. And then so I read Fed Up by Danielle DiMartino Booth. I read Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. I think Danielle pointed in the book, she mentions The Creature from Jekyll Island, and I read that. And
for our listeners, I'm sure most of them know what Creature from Jekyll Island, but tell us about what Creature of Jekyll Island's subject matter is.
That's the history of the world since 1913, right there. That is a difficult tome to get through, but it's a very exciting read, huh? The guy he weaves such a it's compelling that the Fed has been created I mean, everyone who's listening to Smaulgld knows what the Fed is and does, and what, to me, the worst part is how much we have wasted in terms of our energy and labor on pursuing wars, because that has been profitable to certain people, and that was all made possible by the Fed, in my opinion. I mean, that's something. Now I'm probably on the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'm out there being just as rabid of a zealot in favor of what I hope is a much more noble goal, because this might do something towards freeing us from having to always seek growth, and having the economists in charge who tell us, they get on TV and they say, oh, we're working towards a healthy rate of growth, because you can't say, maybe we should be looking for equilibrium. You can't say, let's contract. We should get smaller, because that's an opinion non grata, polite company. And I think someone needs to change that, the bubble where we live in, the money bubble, where we can create money for anything and money for everything.
So it sounds like you have basically described what the Fed is, and they have, and indeed, not just a growth target, they actually have an inflation target.
Right.
And how does gold fit into this anti-inflationary paradigm?
Well, when you have people targeting to make you 2% poorer per year, if you
That's what it is.
If you hold your money that you go out and you work your ass off for, and you hold that money like a good little saver in your Bank of America 0.1% savings interest rate account that they proudly tell you is giving you 0.1%, you're getting hosed, and
by design.
By design, and so it's all in service of the need for you to consume, so we keep growing. Because if we don't grow, then the share prices don't go up, and it all comes crumbling down. You have it's the inverted pyramid, where all the derivatives that everything is based on. It's this beautiful explosion, and at the bottom of this pyramid is gold. Right? Or is it Bitcoin at this point? I don't know.
Let's discuss that, because when you're talking about credit-based consumption, basically what you're doing is you're actually bringing demand forward, meaning you can't afford it now, but if you borrow the money, well, you can afford it now. And usually if you can't afford something, then you forego the consumption and you save your money. But what they've done is they've created an environment where saving your money is going to hurt you, because you're just going to lose it. So now you might as well spend it, and because you don't have enough money to spend to buy what you need, well, then you might even have to borrow money to buy what you need. And if you want a little more, you got to borrow some more money. And that's it for any type of consumer goods. Cars, no one goes out and buys a car today with cash. No one saves up for college and then takes the money out and pays for college. It's all based on loans. So how does though? I'm still not getting, because I believe that you believe that gold can somehow stop that consumption mentality. How does that work?
It's the cure. It's the antidote. It's the anti-dollar. It is the cure to all this consumption, because an understanding, I believe, that when someone actually gets their hands on a nice little thing of 24 karat gold, some pure gold, and holds that in the sun, they will understand what value is and what they worked hard to put in their hands. It will be something they bought that they will just know this isn't going to be worth half of what it's worth in 2 years if it's a cell phone, right? You know, what we should be doing with all of our cell phones is going in there and taking the gold out before we throw them back out to Apple, because that's what they do.
Exactly.
They don't have to waste the gold.
There's actually a machine that does it. I saw a video of it where they put the machine up on a platform, and then these claws go out and pull out. They know exactly where the pieces of platinum, silver, and gold are in the phone, and they pull them out. They drop them into it.
Rapid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they recover it that way.
That makes sense. Yeah, because they're not going to waste no time on that, and they know they need it because they have to buy it. And gold is something with the energy it takes to produce it. That is all so evident in just holding gold. You feel how heavy it is. It must have been difficult to become present in your hand.
Well, there's environmental damage too that's done with gold
and it's terrible, right? The gold mine. That's why Bitcoin is seductive too. Because you think, oh, well, once we get renewable energy, then all the Bitcoin mining will have sound money, and it'll just be these beautiful little green server farms in Iceland that are mining and harvesting your Bitcoin, and so we don't have to worry about the environmental damage of all that processing power it takes to propagate the Bitcoin system and to verify it all. I think we already have the gold, and obviously a lot of it is in central banks, right? But they can find ways to get that into economies. And I think if an economy actually has the guts to say, you know what, we're stepping aside from this forced, competitive devaluation, the entire system of the race to the bottom, both in labor costs, where they're going and trying to find the lowest common or lowest cost for labor, and it's Vietnam one day, it's Mexico another day.
It'll eventually end up in Africa.
They'll eventually end up in Africa once Africa's, hopefully Africa leapfrogs a lot of the shit we've gone through. And, what if it's Africa where they actually say, we're not going to go this debt-based route? I think Africa's already taking a lot of
Well, I heard that Ghana, the Central Bank of Ghana, was thinking that they just forego all the fiat currencies. And
no, I don't think so. I think it's a guy who I've actually spoken to. He lives in D.C., or he moved there, and his family are bankers. His name's Papa Chiefy. His name's Chiefy.
Okay.
And I can send you his Twitter handle after this. He wrote a paper and has been trying to get it in front of the Central Bank of Ghana, saying they need to be the first mover and just start acquiring Bitcoin.
Right.
And that's a really interesting idea. I mean, I love that as an idea. If it's Bitcoin that's going to save us from the debt-based money, then I guess I'm for Bitcoin. But I think gold makes more sense. Just on a lot of people have forgotten what gold is. Most in the West have never. The gold they have is 12 karat or 14 karat or 18.
Right. And it's jewelry. It's not an investment.
Right. It's not. They're not stacking bullion, and I don't think people should be stacking bullion. If you're going to. If you can't do it safely, then you need custodians, and so it could be crypto gold. I mean, I think there are services like, at least for people in America and probably Canada, there's Gold Money, and they do really, really good work. You can convert crypto into gold there, and that's really useful as well. They can be your bank.
And they store and they have a card. I know some people say that they have a card where they can spend their gold that way.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and you have to pay if you want it made of silver or gold. You have to pay for the weight of metal, as is with Gold Money's other venture, the Monet jewelry, where they've teamed up with Diana Vidmar Picasso, and I just can't stop buying this jewelry from them because it's so freaking beautiful.
So
And
our listeners can't see you. Tell me about this jewelry. This isn't meant to be a gold money commercial.
I
But,
don't know. I don't know about anything about jewelry. I've never worn jewelry in my
right,
life, but I love gold. And these and I like the idea of wearing a Picasso, of
right.
course.
So
So
what is it exactly? Is it 18 karat, 24 karat?
no, it's 24 karat investment jewelry. They want it. They aim for nothing less than pure disruption of the jewelry biz by delivering consumers transparently priced, timeless designs that you're only paying for the weight of the metal plus a transparent, usually between 10 and 20%, I think, design fee. So, and that includes the cost of shipping and insurance, and they'll buy it back from you at the whatever the spot price of gold is.
Well, that's pretty good, because even with coins, I know there's a fabrication charge. You can never really just buy any precious metal at spot price unless you're buying a huge bar or something. So, but I want to know, there's a lot of people that are sound money advocates, and they fall into probably three camps. There's actually the most radical, who have definitely decided they want sound money. They don't want debt-based money. They don't want government-issued money. And they like Bitcoin, and they think that gold is just some old thing, and it served its purpose, and now there's digital gold. The next group are people who are only for gold, and they believe that gold has been money for 5,000 years, period, end of story. It is, it should always be, and will continue to be, and that Bitcoin is some type of digital illusion. And then there's some who believe in some type of coexistence of the two. Where do you fall in this? It sounds like you're more in favor of gold, but it sounds like you're more in the last camp with the coexistence of the two.
It may be. I'm not clairvoyant enough to see how the utopia that we want, which is nothing that the people who actually have power want, because it eradicates our need for them by ending our reliance on these enormous supranational institutions, be they corporations or the government, or just the enormous NGOs that are out there. They're raising $500 million a year and doing it's all these the whole notion of globalization is determined to win, and gold is just the worst. That I think it's probably the worst for them if there were that, but I don't think we could ever have a true gold standard because there's too much deceit in the world. So you could get close to it, right? But it's never going to be perfect. Are people going to be carrying gold to and from the grocery store? Hell no. It's going to be done on the phone. So it's if assuming we still have energy in a time where the people have taken control, and that's what sound money is the people taking control, I believe. So Bernie might get us there by turning it into a terrible experiment. But that's probably not how it would play out. But who knows?
So now, how does silver?
I can't answer your question.
No, and that's what no one has the answers. It's just where do you think things might turn out? But where does silver fit into? Because silver is a different metal. Silver has industrial uses. It has a long history of being money, but it's also a long history of not of necessarily being a store of wealth, but almost being pocket change, and that's kind of a good thing because it's something that people were willing to did constantly carry around.
Silver is something that loses you money, Lewis. I think that's the most concise way to
well, it is as an investment, and it has for the last 10 years. It has not been the store of wealth that gold has been. But a lot of people still hold hope that you have silver and you therefore basically have what you would have in gold if you had the money, but you don't have the money. So instead of buying an ounce of gold.
The charts are compelling about the historical relationship between gold and silver and how it seems way out on the it's
high at the moment. It's 80 something plus.
82 or whatever. So it's at an extremis for it. Maybe the relationship has changed though, and this is a new paradigm that silver investors have to get used to.
That is definitely the case. Because one of the things I like to point out to people is when they say when they talk about the historic gold silver ratio. From 1933 to 1974, the price of gold was never allowed to go past $35. Mm-hmm. So the ratio was lower because gold couldn't go higher. And ever since that, Americans have been allowed to own gold. It's since was the end of 1974, early 1975. The price of gold has really moved ahead of silver, and the gold-silver ratio since then has averaged well over 50 to 1. And silver is an industrial metal, and for that reason, there's a need to keep the price lower because they need it to be cheap so they can use it in cell phones and all the other industrial applications. And the other thing that silver doesn't have going for it as a store of value is that central banks don't hold silver as a reserve asset.
Because there's always the people's money.
That's right. That's right. And that's what it was in the late 19th century with William Jennings Bryan, the Silver Democrats. They were always for adding silver to the monetary standard because they thought it to be inflationary. So, but my question now is, we're in today's world, so I don't pay much attention to the ratio and say to it, so well, it's got to go back down to its historic. Well, history was different then, but in today's world, what value do you see in silver? Do you place the same anti-banker properties on it?
No, it's speculative. It's completely speculative. It doesn't.
I would agree.
It's not the way I feel about buying gold is I'm just retiring some money, some savings that I don't know what to do with. I don't want to go buy stocks with it, but I want to just kind of get it away from me because I'm a bit of a spendthrift.
Right.
And so just put it away. I probably am never going to touch it, but I don't care because it's gold. And so I don't feel like I have price risk in gold because I at least know I have the gold. It's not like I'm going and buying GLD or IAU. I'm actually buying gold and I'm storing it through gold money. So I'm not worried about
and your storage fees are lower if you're storing gold than you are storing silver because you have to for the equivalent amount of money, it's going to be
0.5% is their rate for storing silver. So yeah, I am dabbling in some silver speculation right now. I'll admit that. I've got a pretty sizable silver position compared to my historical average, which is nil. You know, I'm 15 months into living the life of a attorney cum investor cum trader, and I have a lot of autonomy. And it's exciting to sort of make these allocations and choices based on the best evidence we have, which is just what's happening today. And I love charts. So the silver.
Let me ask you about charts, because if you look at all the charts of just about any asset, but specifically commodities and other commodity metals, they've all gone up. Palladium, platinum hasn't, but copper, zinc, aluminum, big runs in those. Even gold has had a nice run.
I love GSG. I manage accounts for a handful of people, and for all of them back in it must have been July or maybe a little earlier than July. It could have been. At any rate, they're all heavy in GSG because I figure that's better than cash right now. We like GSG because commodities. When you look at, there's that chart that came out in incrementum of the commodity to financial assets ratio. And it's just mind-blowing that how cyclical this thing is. And it looks like if it's going to history just seems to keep doing this, where you get really you get the downtrodden commodity sector where people shut down production and everyone, and so prices have to go up eventually because there isn't enough of the stuff. And then you add that to, we're trying to get oil out of harder and harder places to get oil that take more and more oil to get the oil. And it's the same story for all the different metals that are so essential. And so it's just, at some point, the prices have to go through the roof if we're going to keep living the same level of consumption that we expect to. And everyone expects to increase.
Well, think about it. Silver is something that is consumed because it is not stored in the same way that gold is. So where do you see a point soon where silver actually starts to move higher?
Well, I mean, it danced outside of a really strong resistance band that I've been tracking, and it managed one close outside of it before it was smacked back in, and it closed beneath the next day, and then it was just a complete, the earth fell out from about 17 down to 1660.
So let me ask you, because you mentioned the word smacked, and that's generally a manipulation. Do you have a view on manipulation of markets? I know interest rates, but precious metals and silver specifically.
Well, so what I've done for the past 14 months is every single day from about 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. Watching currencies, commodities, and futures, and I watch them on a minute by minute. You know, obviously not all of them minute by minute, but I'll have them up on 4 hours or 1 hour, or 15 minutes, or the one I'm really focusing on, 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And you see certain things that don't comport with the usual behavior, and there are, I mean, there's clearly some sort of when it comes to the gold smashes, the gold pukes, as we call them. I was of the mind. I was of the initial red pill perspective. To use this is the second red pill, Smaulgld.
Right.
I was of the red pill perspective that central banks were stepping in. They would smash the price during illiquid times, and that was to defeat the purpose to people of investing in gold, because you always lose. So there may be
to demoralize the investor. The idea was to demoralize, to discourage hoarding.
Right, because you're just going to lose if you actually try, and definitely, I don't know why people trade gold. I mean, you have to be an absolute shark or an algo to I guess
you might as well trade something else. There's more money in it.
Yeah, gold's too emotional for me, so I just don't trade it. And if I'm gonna, I'll just buy gold if I want gold. So okay. But I don't know how to sell it yet, and I guess that's a good thing.
Sure.
That'll save me over the long run. But to answer your question about the manipulation, now the second red pill, if you go and read all of Jeff Snyder has his insights and research blog at Alhambra Investments, mm-hmm. He's the most prolific person on planet Earth. I read everything he puts out, and I've gone through, and just followed the links because he references his former articles. So I've been reading stuff that he's written from 2008 all the way through present day, and I think he just put out 2 new pieces today, one on Ford, which I'm interested in, because how dumb of Ford to now say, right as we're entering higher oil prices, we're done with cars, we're just doing SUVs. But I digress. So Jeff Snyder makes the case that it's not manipulation so much as it is like outright trying to kill the spirits of gold investors, even if that is a result. And I think guys like Andre Flotron, it seems like they love doing it. I mean, they loved being the big dogs in the market and whipping people around and just winning. They're just out there. They're sharks, and I can't believe the guy skated. I mean, I can, because no one has any idea what the attorney would be talking about, and it wouldn't be that difficult to confuse them and make them think there's a shadow of a doubt. But anyways, the point is, it's just, if there's stress in the system, they'll go and ask to borrow some gold from whoever it is, and they'll go and sell it into the market to raise cash because their other repo collateral or whatever it is isn't ready. It's not there. It's not, there's some hitch in the giddy up of the Eurodollar system. So gold is the whipping boy because it's very liquid and it's a deep market, and gold receivable equals gold on their balance sheets because of some fraudulent law. Because gold is gold, it's not gold receivable, it's not a gold future.
Right, but given that there is a amount of gold traded that far exceeds the amount of gold that's mined or even on the planet at times, the values that are traded, doesn't that almost prevent, and since not a lot of people, but people who are in financial markets are satisfied with a fiat value of the gold, doesn't that, unless people en masse actually want to hold the physical gold, won't that always have, as long as we have the financialization of the precious metals market, won't we always have a much lower price? Because the supply of gold is almost infinite in paper.
Absolutely. You're never in a million years going to see gold be gold while there's a pile of a $22 trillion pile of derivatives in some way that's just accumulating on short volatility, and the amount of repression in the financial system. Gold doesn't have a prayer at making you, at rewarding you for being smart. until there's some sort. And I think it's prima facie fraudulent that there can be more shorts. Right? Maybe there aren't more shorts, but there's more money directed at shorting gold than or shorting silver.
Right, than it exists. Yeah. Well, here's the question.
It's insane. So it shouldn't be legal.
No, but that's the point. Is it is legal, and who's going to make it illegal? But you had a situation where Bitcoin managed to go from $1,000 to $20,000.
It was amazing. That was the best thing of 2017. What a freaking ride.
Right. So if you look at gold, anytime a gold prognosticator tells you that gold is going to skyrocket, it's usually not just because it's going to go to 20,000. There has to be some type of, well, China's going to reset the price at 20,000, or there's going to be a collapse and it'll just be 20,000.
The Jim Rickards idea. Well, you just reprice it.
Yeah, but that's not the same as, yeah. And good luck with that happening, because, yeah, you could say it might happen, but if it doesn't happen, there's no real chance that gold or silver would actually go to those prices as long as you have these current markets. Now, if that's the case, one would argue that it may be more prudent to invest in the cryptocurrencies. However, to my mind, that's imprudent because, in a sense, they aren't anything. They are not the same as a physical commodity. What's your view on the potential for cryptocurrencies to either go again to the moon or back down to zero? What do you think?
Well, you have to remain objective, because it's very easy to be subjective, especially as someone who understands gold's history. I mean, it's the history of it and how it made sense in the past for mankind, and I think we don't need a computer to tell us that that's the only thing that can make sense in the future. There has to be a way for us to reunite with the limiter on our excess, which gold really provides that Bitcoin doesn't. Bitcoin is flawed because and the reason a lot of people on the left will never willingly go on to Bitcoin is because I'm going to digress for just a second here. So when I was recently talking to a young lady, and she mentioned something about how her former boyfriend was can you believe he was an evangelical conservative? And we basically had to stop speaking because she realized, she got the idea that I wasn't left wing, and I've been trying to unravel why this happened. How could someone be so ideologically biased without really having strong convictions? I mean, there was no fight in this dog in terms of, I'm going to actually so you said something and I want to pick it apart and show you where you're wrong, and here's how we're going to constructively disagree and maybe come to some sort of, well, we'll agree to disagree, but we at least tried. It was just, I'm not sure our views align, so I can't speak to you. And I think a lot of that comes from, at least from my generation, you get the sense when all you have is debt, and you have to live with your parents because rent is so freaking high if you want to go and live in a city. I mean, you just hope your parents live in the suburbs of that city so you can commute every day. It's very difficult to think about. You think you're told capitalism is the problem, so you hate people who have wealth, and you think that their wealth is ill-gotten, or at any rate, you don't understand what money is. And so I think they're going to have a very hard time going and saying, okay, so all these freaking tech nerds who have been buying up Bitcoin for years suddenly become my overlords? No, thank you. These are the guys that some of them would make fun of in high school. They're not going to go and say, yeah, I'm coming on to the Bitcoin standard and buying it at 45,000, and that's, yeah, I want to actually get my wages in Bitcoin now, please. I have a hard time seeing it unless Bitcoin goes to $5 million and it inexorably pulls everything in, and you get the Bitcoin like hyper orbit where it consumes the entire financial system. Which, when Bitcoin was hitting 20,000 and I was sitting on some really nice looking gains, I was thinking maybe Bitcoin just will achieve that escape velocity, but it was the night of the futures being introduced, and so it was a very easy sell signal too for someone who's seen gold. You're like, okay, you've seen uranium, you've seen silver. There's a futures market now, and what happens? You tick the top, and it just starts coming down. It was like by 17,000, you're like, okay, maybe let's lighten up, and by 15,000, you're like, let's lighten up. So you're still locking in, really good gains, But yeah, I mean, does Bitcoin have a chance now that there's a futures market? It's not. I don't think it can be the same thing. Could it? I don't know.
Well, I don't know, but but then let's look at the other cryptocurrencies. You've got EOS, you've got Ethereum, you've got Litecoin, you got Cardano. No, it's whether it interests you. The question is, they don't currently have a futures market, so they can be untethered. I think that EOS coin is like triple. What?
Is it sound money?
Not at all. No, none of them are. No.
Yeah,
I'm talking just speculation, because you mentioned that silver, in a sense, is not sound money.
Well, have you speculated in altcoins, Lewis?
No.
Okay, because doing your taxes, let me just, to any listeners out there,
I know the names of them. I know that people were trading, like they would have a Cardano, and then they'd swap it for EOS, and then when that went down, they'd swap it for something else.
It took me days to work through all the transactions I did last year, from altcoin into altcoin into altcoin.
Well, I think last year it was okay, because if you did a like kind, was it last year or is it this year? If you did a like kind exchange, you didn't pay gains. You only paid it when you swapped it into fiat. But now they say if you have a gain on Cardano and you move it into Stellar, you have a gain on Cardano. Is that what it was?
I paid taxes on everything. I think I got really screwed by it, and it left a it just. So
well, that's a way of discouraging you, because they say, okay, if you're going to use these things, every time you use them, you're going to pay tax, you're going to have to track it. So it becomes a liability.
And if crypto keeps growing, then the tax experience that I had in 2018 dealing with 2017 will be my saving grace, because I still have a bunch of altcoin positions that I'm just not going to touch. And some of them are already, I haven't had any interest in them basically since.
Well, here's the thing about the altcoins. You see, and I had this discussion with a friend of mine. A lot of people think prices of these things will go up when they start being used. But I view that when you start using them, well, you're actually selling them and spending them. And if everybody's kind of holding on to them, either because they don't want to bother with having taxes, or they think they're going to go higher, that actually could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they can go higher.
Yeah, and it's happening. I mean, I've got this green coin that supposedly has something to do with sustainability, which on a lark I just happened to pick up, because when you, in about, what was it, June or July, you could just turn your Bitcoin into anything, and 2 days later you had more Bitcoin. It was just wild how much. It was indiscriminate flows of money coming in, and you could on Twitter the frenzy and the euphoria of everybody making so much money. You had all those crypto trading accounts.
And do you think that's a once in a lifetime? I actually think
it might be.
I think you might see it again later this year.
Well, I'm open to it. I mean, Bitcoin.
The reason I say that is that it's a casino, and degenerate gamblers, after they lose, they say, I'm never going back again. And you know how long that lasts? Well, about 6 months.
It's a question of liquidity then, because I think it will come back. You've got QT happening, and I think if QT impacts the stock markets, you'll have so what you could have is the narrative. People will start to question narrative.
Right.
And once they start questioning, are we still in a bull market? You see people selling stocks so that it becomes the reflexive. Prices come down, so people take less risk. The economy may start to go into recession, and I don't know if you'll get those same speculative flows when there's not the ebullient consumer confidence at 101.
That's true too. That's right. I mean, we had a perfect storm where you had low interest rates, you had good stock market gains, and they were rising, and that attracts people to the party. And when and the reverse happens, when it goes down, they want to leave the party. But I think people are always up for a party, so we'll see what happens. Well,
if it's a millennial party and recession hits, we're going to be the first to be let go. So I don't know. Maybe they will turn to crypto, and we could see it. I'm open to it. I'm looking for it, and I'll let you know.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today on the Smaulgld Subscriber Sound Off series, and we look forward to talking to you again, Patrick. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Lewis.